I decided to talk about real life games with you, and the reason why is it gets into a lot of the concepts of gamification and how that works within our systems. And also, while I was walking around in my search for understanding of things in out amongst places, or while I was doing my Boy Scout thing, or not Boy Scout thing, sorry. While I was having my birthday thing, I noticed things that I had done earlier studies on. So I was like, okay, we should talk about this now. We're at this point, and you'll recognize some of this same stuff, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, of course. This is just the chapter that explains it a little better. Yeah, that's it. So a real life game is where something has the same goal and therefore has a lot of the same rules and same setup. If we were to ignore this picture of StarCraft and you were to look at the knight and the gang members, you would say, well, they don't look very similar. And the answer and my response is no, they are very similar. Notice how they're giving hand signals to properly tell you which gang they're a part of. The truth is, the knights had that same thing. They also had, if you'll notice the little flags on the Assyrian Sassanid armor, you'll notice that they have those little flags. Those flags were used exactly the same way as the gang members. They had tattoos that talked about how glorious they were for their gang members. They were basically gangs that were supported by the state. And the reason why is they were of the same age. Between the ages of 10 and 30 is about the point where they start bringing in knights and teaching them and training them and getting them into the battles. And after about 30, the knights are told to become squires or something to take care of the new knights coming in. But let's look at it in a different way. They looked at grid systems and they said, okay, this is our area and that is their territory, and we can get along just fine, or we can not get along, and we can battle for resources. And then you put in that StarCraft thing and you go, hey, that's the same thing. Different colors, kind of a different idea, but very similar goals in mind. So a real life game is where something is set up where it has the same goals. And because of that, it's very similar to a game. There's no attempt there, but it is real. My best example is SimCity versus the Phoenix Valley. You'll notice this is a picture of of Phoenix on the left and SimCity on the right. I don't know why I didn't switch them around, but there we go. But you'll notice, if something is kind of broken down, it kind of looks very similar to the way Phoenix does. When something is torn down in Phoenix, they just leave a pile of dirt there in the exact same way that you will find in SimCity. And the buildings will be all very grid-like, and everything will be kind of a similar shape and similar feel to it, in the exact same way that SimCity does it. They weren't trying to do that on purpose, it's just they had the same goals. They only had so many ways to design a house. And you know what? People had a special preference, so they started to build the same house over and over and over again. I kind of joked with people that because I've been in a house 3 blocks over, I've been in their house. People did not understand what I was telling them, and I was just like, you don't get it at all, do you? But that was part of suburbia. And because Phoenix is very flat, you can just see this really easily. In fact, the first time I arrived in Phoenix, I looked out the window of my plane and I was just like, holy crap, it's SimCity. How did they do this? And, it's because they were basing everything off of a grid-based system, and the Phoenix, or the SimCity people were using grids because that's the best system for what they have. In another example, we have RPGs versus Cub Scouts. RPGs, those role-playing games where you have to choose out stats and you have to build up your character and you have to work on how his stats work. And then you have this little picture of Cub Scouts battling it out, and you'll notice they're carrying boffer swords and stuff. And the reality is, I turned this battle into a goal for Cub Scouts. That's where the concept of gamification comes in. Cub Scouts have just this list of rules they have to follow. Not list of rules, list of goals. And for each group of goals, they're given a badge or a pin. And if they get so many pins, they get an award, or they get a major badge, like the Weebelows. I'm over Weebelows. And or the Arrow of Light. And most of my scouts are about to get their Arrow of Light right now. But the way to motivate them is to tell them, okay, we're going to have this big battle. I want you to draw these flags. They don't realize they've just fulfilled like 3 different pins right there, 3 different sets of goals. Okay, let's build these things right here. Oh, there's 2 more pins right there. Okay, we've got to go on a hike to go look for the enemy. Oh, they loved it. They ate it up. Oh, while we're doing the hike, I'll have people with makeup on so that it looks like they're injured. And I'll have the scouts take care of the people who are injured. My favorite story from this event is a mom lay down with kind of a bloody gash across her face, and people kept on stopping and asking if she was okay, and she's like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Don't worry. It's makeup. And, the parents didn't realize this, but every single thing they built and made and did helped them move forward into this great siege idea. Here's one of my scouts working on his catapult. And the guy with the glasses is my little brother, who is an engineer. And he was teaching them how to build engineering devices, catapults. And so they engineered the perfect catapults over and over again. One kid, and every kid had his own style of catapult. I thought that was so cool. But in their minds, they didn't see it, because to them, everything was the siege. So I just took this real-life game where everything was set up just like a video game. I made up a goal in mind that would be exactly the same for Cub Scouts and this game. And I said, okay, at the end of this, we're going to have this big battle, and we're going to play a game of capture the flag with boffer swords. And that's what they did. They designed every shield, every sword, every flag. There was little forts they built. I had them study medieval design, and they just did this because they felt like they were part of this. They felt into the game. They didn't recognize what was going on, or more precisely, they probably did quite often, but they were like, no, this is a lot of fun anyway. You turned it into a game. And that was my goal, was to turn it into a game, this thing that was already a game. One of the problems we have with Boy Scouts is it's already gamified. It's gamified for a time from the 60s or 70s or 50s. And you have to change it for a kid to modern times. So, I have to mention zombies and, Minecraft and stuff like that. So then the kids are like, oh yeah, I know that. I know this game. I know how this works. Yeah. And it just fits into their head, so they move forward with it. So, with that same idea, a lot of the same goals, the same video games even, or for malls and multiplayer games, are exactly the same. We want to get all these people to mill through and feel like they're kind of in this area and have different artifacts around everywhere, so then you know where you are, and just make it look kind of nice to look at. So you always know where you are, you have goals in mind, and you always are looking around. Well, that's the exact same goals for a mall or a multiplayer game, especially a deathmatch game. So we have deathmatch games in malls and schools and places like that all have these goals, but we can't say that they're just like a first-person shooter. And we can't talk about it at all. I have looked into multiple books, and they're very careful around talking about this. They do not say that modern architecture should be used for game design, even though it's openly known. The guy talking about how Disneyland is designed just like a video game, he was like, oh yes, look at this, look at this, look at this. But you'll notice he never said schools or malls or any other place. And the reason why is, well, it's a tough subject, and that's what we're going to be discussing in the next 2 parts. The next part, we're going to be talking about level design and, you know, how it began and why it's similar within goals as malls and stuff. Also, we're going to talk about, you know, the reason why people kind of shy away from the subject. So we're going to get into that a little later, and catch you all later.